Good morning to you. This is Moses. We are going to be continuing from where we stopped last time, and this time around we are going to be looking at measurements on a map. Now, when we talk about the measurements here, we are much going to be dealing with the distance measurement. We look at the distance, and then also we go ahead and look at what we call directional measurements. And when we talk about directional measurements, here we shall much be looking at what we call the bearing. Then also we look at the area of areas, or calculating area measurement on the map. And also we look at the use of the GPS, in other words the geographical positioning system, and also look at the distance and how it operates. Now when you look at the distance measurements, we have what we call measuring distance on regular surface and irregular surface. Now with the measurements here, or determining the distance, here is what is mostly important, is that we look at the distance. We try to measure the distance of regular and irregular objects. For example, when we are talking about the irregular objects, we are going to be looking at roads that tend to be straight, or objects that tend to be straight in line. And that one there, we borrow the idea of using what we call rulers. And when we are done with measuring the distances, then we tend to get a given figure into what we call centimeters. From there we have to convert that one into centimeters. So when we are converting from meters, you may be given that map exact when it is having meters or inches. So at least there we have to undergo what we call calculations. Therefore, if you are given, for instance, if you measured and found out that it was having 1 centimeter, so when you are having like 10 centimeters, and that one will require us to multiply it with what we call the scale. And when you look at the scale, you may be given some map excerpts, they tend to be having 1 to 500,000 meters, or others may be having a ratio to 1 to 1,000. So here we are going to be multiplying straight away. For instance, we shall be multiplying now here with the 10,000, and which will be giving us a total of 100,000. That's how we calculate that distance on objects with straight distance. Now when it comes to determining the distances with the help of what we call a straight-edged paper, or even sometimes we tend to be using a thread. When you look at the illustration there, we have illustration 1 and illustration 2, which implies illustration 1 was it had a clear or straight segments. There are segments. Last, when you look at the last illustration, it's showing that the road or the surface had what we call, or it was not having a straight surface. In other words, the road is irregular. So we tend to be using a thread and you move it along that curve or that road that we are given there, and at least you try to curve as the road tries to curve until you reach to the end. And when you reach at the end, you get that paper that you have obtained and place it onto the linear scale. Usually these map extracts, they tend to be having the scales are displayed on the map extract. So we borrow or we use those scales and establish the distance. You may be, I'm assuming that you may be having around 8 units. You carry those units onto a linear scale. When you place it on a linear scale, it will be clearly showing you from 0 to different units. But if you are trying to write, sometimes we tend to be having points in there, but you push that paper that you are using to move along the road backwards. You try to extend that paper backwards, then you read off those units. And when you're writing those units, for them they appear to be in points. So you record those units. For instance, you can say it was 8.7. In other words, if you look at the scale, it may be in kilometers. That implies that automatically you'll be putting 7.1 kilometers. That is for what we call irregular objects. And also we have measurements of irregular features on maps. And here we tend to use the geographical positioning system or the geographical information system with the help of a software known as ArcGIS. When you look at the ArcGIS, that one, it helps in measuring irregular objects. And then here, this one, it is more of digital use. For it, it involves the moving the cursor along that road or that irregular object, maybe a river, it may be a road. When you move it along from the point or from the starting point up to the end, for it, the information will be displaying itself clearly. You will not need to carry or to write somewhere that I'm going now to put this information onto another or to put it on a scale. For it, it will just be displaying the information. This one being, we are dealing with the software that has been designed with different information concerning different areas and different places. When you look at the geographical information system, or what we call GIS, very many people have uploaded results or information concerning their environment or concerning cities. For instance, people upload about there may be what we call water pumps, there may be security post station, police security stations, there may be factories, there may be tourist attractions, there may be mountains. In other words, if you want to find out how many factories or how many policing stations do we have there, it can clearly show that it can clearly give the right example. This one being that there is that part of the information that is uploaded and stored in there. And also, if you want to be knowing the number of birth and the death, it is also there. So people have that technology being uploaded in there. So if you want to know anything concerning the state or your region, you can easily find out with the help of an app known as GIS, or what you can term as the global or geographical information system. Below there we have what we call the sample exercise. And when you look at that sample exercise, they're saying that using a topographical map, determine the distance between any two locations of your choice. Now here they are just dealing the distance between two of your location. For instance, you may be having point A and point B. And also, let me try to take you back. When you look at this point, I'm just assuming that if you can use this, if you look at point 8 and point 10, so you may be told to find the location between those 2 points. In other words, you can use the straight can use the street ruler or measurements and just measure directly. And also you can also be in use of the GIS, or what we call the ARCGP, GIS, or what we call the Information Geographical System, to know the distance from point 8 to point 10. So there are very many ways how you can be try to know the location or the distance in terms of location of the 2 points. You can select, you can name point A and point B, then you measure the distance. For instance, when you are going to be using the ArcGIS system, for it, that means that you'll be only looking at areas that have got their information being uploaded. For example, Uganda, Kenya, you can talk about America, you can talk about China, Canada, and very many others. Those countries, at least, they have tried to embrace the technology, so it can be easy for you to determine the distance from one point to another with the help of the geographical information system. When we go on, we are going to be looking at what we call the directional measurements on maps. With the directional measurements of the map here, we tend to be looking at what we call the bearing in terms of direction. And when we talk about the directional measurements, we are going, it encompasses very many things. For instance, bearing, talk about the trends, talk about trends, talk about bearing, and also what we call the detour index. So the detour index, the trend, and also the bearing, that one can clearly allocate for you the direction, or it can give you the directional measurements. And now here, everything concerning bearing or directional measurements, we tend to be borrowing the ideas of the use of the bearing, or with the idea of the use of the compass. When you look at the compass, it has got different directions, but here we may look at the major 4 directions in terms of the true north. Talk about east, south,